Hey everyone, we're gonna do something a little different today, a brand new game, actually, that just came out on Steam today, at least at the day of recording. It goes by the name of Tallowmere. Tallowmere is actually, very impressively, a one-man development, and it's got quite a unique style to it, and I really like it, and I wanted to cover it. So, this is a game that's been around, for a little while before it's actually come onto Steam. But now that it's officially released on Steam, I figured I would try and get some eyes on it. So what is Tallowmere? Tallowmere is this fairly interesting, I guess, kind of roguelite platformer style of game. And I'm just going to go ahead and get into it because it's fairly simple but quite interesting. So this is where you always start. This is the sort of hub. This is your home. This is a teleporter, and you'll find these throughout the dungeon that allow you to travel back here at any time you need. This is Lady Tallowmere, who will heal you and things like that, and you have various NPCs around here that allow you to do things whenever you're home. So you have, of course, the heal lady here. You've got these demon statues, which I'll explain in a minute. You have this man down here, basically Death, who allows you to do these punishments, which are basically, they up the difficulty for you. I'm not sure if they give you more score, I would assume they do. But I've got the no anti-stun potions active just because I wanted to try some of them out. And these are just, you can have as many of these as you want active as far as I know, and they allow you to make the game more difficult for you. And, kind of like the various shrines and things in games like Bastion and the one and only Transistor that allow you to just make the game more challenging for yourself just because you want to. You have a merchant here who will restock his wares very frequently. And of course, when you first start out, you have 0 gold, so there's no point in, trying to buy anything from him. But there are rocket launchers, yes. You have this adorable, strange cat thing, which meows at you a lot. And you have this man up here that allows you to sacrifice kittens. Yes, the game deliberately makes you feel terrible for getting more health. How it works is you always start with 10 HP, unless you have one of the randomly generated items you start with that gives you an extra health or so. But you can sacrifice a kitten for extra health, and you can do this up to 9 times. But first of all, that makes you feel like a terrible human being, and secondly, it actually puts you on a different scoreboard. So there are actually 10 different scoreboards, anywhere from no kitten sacrifice to 9. And so basically, I would assume that the most competitive scoreboard is, of course, not sacrificing any, so you'll always have the kind of least amount of health to start out with possible. So let's get into it. You always start with an axe, just a basic axe, and a basic shield, as well as an outfit, no headgear, and a single potion. So, as you may assume, loot is randomly generated. There are various types of weapons, and each of them actually has their own, besides, of course, sort of like prefixes and suffixes, they also have their unique usages, and in this case, the axe is just a simple, one-strike, short-range melee weapon. Very simple, but that's what you always start out with, so into the dungeon we go. As you may guess, it's always randomly generated. So you have this shield that can block almost anything, pretty much. And yes, he can hurt himself. And there are many enemy types you'll be facing. That was a, what are they called? Conductor. Basically a storm mage. And you'll be making your way through these randomly generated dungeons, a room at a time, and you'll encounter lots of traps like spikes, as you can see, and those skulls, which are poison gas traps. Those you cannot block, I assume, because they go through you, so even if you block it from the front, it still kind of hits you from the back because it goes through you, so gotta be a bit careful. One of the many unique features of the game is you actually have an infinite jump, which I'll demonstrate in the next room. You don't need any items for it or anything, you can always jump infinitely. You can stay in the air pretty much indefinitely. And every time you slay an enemy, you'll get a soul, those blue things. Souls are pretty freaking important. Ow! I hate those things. Because that's basically the game's level up system. Every time you get a certain number of souls, as you can see in the bottom right there, I have 3 of 15, you will get a soul group, which you can then give to one of those demon statues for a level up, which will increase your health, increase your damage, and give you extra that was stupid. Extra resistances or something of that sort, depending on, it changes every time, of course. So you'll be making your way through the dungeon. The rooms will get bigger and more challenging as you go, with more and more enemies, and of course, they can have various kind of special effects as well. Maybe an enemy or a room with double the number of enemies in it, or a room where you have to capture the flag. There are kind of these story events, I guess you could say, that happen. Ah, God. Those things stun you. Ah, crap. Things like, let's get out of here. Things like the ability to, well, the need to rescue Lady Tallowmere, who will get kidnapped and, of course, can't heal you while you're kidnapped, and various boss fights and things that will happen, including giant Mr. Biggins the cat, because you give him laxatives. Yes, that's what happens. And a Hydra, in fact. So I think I'll keep the health regen, honestly, but I'll sell that to our merchant here. Boop. And anything I can buy that I want? No, I only have 30. That's not a lot. So basically, this is just how the game goes. It's quite a simple concept, but I think in execution it's fairly satisfying. There's something about it I can't quite put my finger on. There's something about the way that it looks and feels. It reminds me graphically, dang it, of one of those old DOS or Windows 98 adventure games that you would find. That's what the graphics remind me of. Like, visually it looks, I mean, simple, but satisfying because of the way the enemies gib, and the blood stains and stuff are permanent, by the way, which is kind of satisfying. The way that loot, coins, and keys fly out of enemies as you kill them is quite satisfying. And the physical nature of it all, meaning, you know, everything has sort of physics attached to it. Those big buzzsaw fairy things you saw called Zeries, which bounce around as you block them and hit them and stuff like that. The way the conductor's lightning bolts have a lot of force to them, like that. And they can actually hurt themselves. The overall feel of the game, it's kind of hard for me to actually describe, but I'd say it's a bit greater than the sum of its parts. Because the game itself, like I mentioned, is fairly simple. It's quite a simplistic idea, but in practice it's quite enjoyable. For some reason, it just feels a little different than similar games. I think it has to do with the kind of theme it has, and again, this graphic style is interesting. It's obviously quite simple. You kind of do the South Park wobble as you walk around. There's not a whole lot of animation, but graphically it reminds me of those old DOS games for some reason. And Windows 98 kind of adventure games, the kind of things that you would find on like discs of multiple games, things like that. It's a kind of unique graphic style. It's actually a Unity game, if I remember correctly, and you can tell that, of course, you know, it is an indie game. It's fairly simple looking, that's fine, but it is, I guess it's not the classic like 8-bit style. It's a little different, and I kind of appreciate that. Ow! It's more of a kind of old school PC DOS or Windows 98 game style, which I like. I don't have a problem with the 8-bit graphic style, but this is something, this is just a bit different. Alright, so I'm going to give my soul group to that demon statue, and he's going to give me maximum health souls, some attack power souls, and that one which is going to give me health regen. Nice. So this is how the game goes. You will, continue to make your way through the dungeon, and as you get deeper, of course, rooms get larger. Enemies get tougher. Every now and then you'll see a little screen that says your foes grow stronger, or something like that, which of course means that basically the enemies have leveled up as well, and will continue to get more and more powerful. And like I said, you'll come across those rooms, like this, that have special kind of goals to them besides just get the key and leave. In this case, it's to defeat a boss, the Hydra. Oh god. And occasionally you'll find those mini-boss enemies, the ones that glow red and have large health gauges. Those are elites. And they guard those golden chests that can only open once you actually kill the enemy. I'm not doing too bad, but I could be doing a lot better. Ow! So your shield is your best friend, because it can block almost everything, as long as you actually are facing the... I need like a ranged weapon for this. Also, that poison there is, Well, it's poison, the water, so don't land in it. Alright, come on. Ow. Ah, jeez. Alright, I've still got a health potion, so that's nice. I'm going to need it, I think. And, again, the graphic style kind of comes into its own here, by which I mean, although it's simple looking, it's oddly satisfying to see the physical nature of everything, how everything moves, you know, connected by multiple, kind of parts, as if it's like this weird articulation thing. I don't know, I guess it's classic, but in a different way than a lot of other graphic styles calling themselves classic, like 8-bit. I like it. The way every weapon actually works differently is kind of key as well, because, for instance, there's a katana, and you might expect that the katana maybe is the same as the axe, but it does more damage, or something like that. But that's actually not the case. The katana teleports you when you strike with it. There's a rocket launcher that's a rapid-fire... Oh god! No, point that! I'm screwed. A rapid-fire area of effect blowing everything up weapon. There's an ice wand, which is a rapid, freezing, magical projectile launcher. Every weapon is actually quite a bit different, and of course everyone can have its own loot prefixes and suffixes. So we're gonna try one more run, just to show it off, and as you can see, I start with the same stuff, but my items are gonna be a bit different. So that one actually gives me more resistance, that one gives me health on kill, whereas last time it gave me health regen. Stuff like that. And that means, of course, that every run is going to be different, which is, of course, the key of games like this. I'm going to sneeze. Sorry about that. And I think, although the game is fairly simple, it is enjoyable in its own ways, and here's the real key. The price is right for this game. It's only $5. $5. That's all it's going to cost you. I think for the proposition it's offering, $5 is actually really very fair. Because there's not like a massive crap ton of content, but there's more than just a little bit. There's enough to keep you going for, you know, some kind of fun runs. One of those small games you jump into every now and then and just kind of try it out, you know? Do a couple runs while a video is rendering, for instance. Cough, cough. And the price is right for that kind of proposition, I feel. It's one of those smaller games on Steam that, you run into, have a little bit of fun with, and come back to every now and then. And it's unique enough in its theme that I feel it's worth that. It's also got a pretty good sense of humor with the weird cat laxative and the princess gets stolen in a cutscene and the enemy says something like, you know, feel the power of the immobilizing cutscene, which is of course a huge problem that a lot of games have. Pretty funny. I like the sense of humor. Again, it's that weird, classic, old PC game style that I actually quite like. It all comes together to feel a bit old school, but not in a negative way, as in it's old school with the old limitations of games of that nature. No, it feels fairly modern in its gameplay style, but simple. And that's just fine. Sometimes you're in the mood for a simple game. And also I have to, of course, comment on the fact that it's all made by one guy. His name is Chris McFarland, a New Zealander, who is... that's pretty cool. I'm always impressed when games are made by very small teams of people. That always impresses me. I really like the idea of, you know, just one or two or three people sitting down with an idea and making something successful out of it. And I feel like this guy has actually seen his fair share of success already. He's getting up there. You know, it's not this huge, massive success of a game, of course. It's a small, simple little thing, but it's a lot of fun. Ooh. And I feel that someone making all of the graphical assets, all of the sound effects, all the music, all of the ideas and the writing, and everything just by oneself is quite impressive. I think that's very cool. It's not... it's hard to say that it's not a perfect game, because there's nothing extremely wrong with it. It's just very simple in execution. And that's... And that's okay. It's got a small amount of content, you know, a few weapon types, a few armor types. It's not huge, but again, the price is right for that kind of content, I feel. Okay, tried to jump over that, but I get stunned. Kill him, kill him, kill him, yeah. But like I said, it's simple, but it's not dumb, I guess you could say. It's got a fair amount of enjoyable content to it that you'll probably have some fun with it for the price you're getting it for. You know, not expensive. I need to get back to the... nope. Aha! I fooled you all! Right. So, I think that you kind of get the idea, you know, fairly simple but enjoyable. The game will continue to go on like this with various rooms with all kinds of different bosses and objectives to complete, and some funny story events with some interesting weapons to find along the way. It's very rare that you get an ice shooting wand and a rocket launcher in the same game, with the ability to infinitely jump around, sacrifice kittens for extra health, and talk to death to make the game harder for you. I think overall it's kind of an interesting proposition. The gameplay is greater than the sum of its parts, I guess you could say, because it's, although simple, it's enjoyable enough to feel like you got your money's worth out of it, I guess you could say. Ow! Have some grenades, yeah. And that's just satisfying. The way that gold and everything just explodes out of everyone, it's fun to watch. I'm not sure how many updates that he continues, that he plans on, you know, continuing with the game with, but again, for the price, I feel like it's got enough in it. It's not an early access game, it's, you know, it's done, you could say, but I'm not sure exactly what is going to be the future of the game, if he plans on adding anything more to it or something. Ow! Like that was very dumb. Ah, God! But I guess time will tell, we'll see, and for a $5 proposition, that's, I feel like, enough of a value for people to just jump in on it and have some fun. So there you go, guys. This has been Tallowmere. It is an interesting little game made by one dude with an interesting sense of humor, a pretty cool style that reminds me of some older stuff that I had a lot of fun with back in the day. And it's small enough to be one of those compact little kind of simpler games that you jump into and play a few rounds of every now and then. You know, just take a few minutes and feel satisfied with it, and then die by your own grenades like a moron. So there you go, folks. Tallowmere. On Steam right now, just got on Steam today. $5, I'll link you in the description. Made by one guy, pretty cool. I like to see small development teams like that. So, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Rah!